Well, good morning. We'll call the August 2nd, 2016 Pennington County Commission meeting to order. We'll stand for a moment of silent reflection, and I would encourage you to give thoughts toward two of our employees that we've lost. Then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mike Kugel.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is to review and approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes they wish to make to the agenda? Now, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the consent agenda. Holly?
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following two items: approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of July 19th, 2016. And number 6 is to schedule a public hearing at 9:15 a.m. on August 16th for the General Fund Budget Supplement SP 16-008 for the weed and pest budget.
Does anyone have any changes they wish to make to the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is a County Cares presentation by Alexa White.
Good morning, Alexa White with Pennington County Emergency Management Deputy Director. And I've got two items, different programs that we have that I wanted to talk about. The first one is our specific needs registry, and I gave you each a brochure to look at if you wanted to look at that more closely. But this was developed back in 2013. Okay, sorry. Let that.
We want everybody to hear you.
We started working on this early in the year in 2013 to put together a plan. FEMA has this as part of their regulations that when we are making plans for the county that we include planning for this population, people that have different struggles that a lot of us don't have, whether that be with mobility or all kinds of different things. So that's part of our pre-disaster mitigation planning as notated up there, the local emergency operations plan. And both of those are targeted towards large scale incidents, but there is a need for planning for all the populations in both of those. And the next, this is just a few pictures, with flooding, fires. That snowmobile picture up there was during Winter Storm Atlas when there was oxygen operations, taking oxygen out to people who needed that because they had lost power and needed that help. And of course, that last one over here was the tornado that we had in 1967, I believe, the one that hit Town and Country Motel downtown. This shows a little bit of the census data in 2012. You can see, it's kind of hard to see on this graph, but it's been rising, the amount of people that consider themselves in this population that have specific needs that either they need, they're on oxygen, they have special, needs that they have with dietary needs or mental health capacity, that they may need some extra assistance. And a lot of times in a big disaster, you have to act quickly and move quickly, and these folks need a little bit of extra help, whether that be from somebody in the facility where they're located, or that be a family member who's watching over them. And so this was all designed to try to gather these people as much as we can, to know who they are, where they are, so that in the case of a big disaster, we can help them if they need assistance. This doesn't mean that we're going to call them every time there's a disaster. Hey, are you okay? This is not a guarantee that they're going to get help per se, but this helps us know where they are and who they are so that we can check up on them if needed. In the case of like a Winter Storm Atlas, where there's a whole bunch of people who are going to be without power, we can pull this up on a map and find out where they are and maybe try to target certain areas of town that need power sooner than other parts, because it's life-sustaining for them. There are challenges, of course, with this population. If you're hearing impaired, you may not hear a siren go off. If you can't move quickly because you're in a wheelchair, you might need assistance moving to a different location. So, and sheltering is always difficult too. The Red Cross does our sheltering here in Pennington County, and they are charged with providing specific needs for this population as well in the shelters, and all of that comes with some challenges. The brochure that I handed you guys looks like this. It is completely voluntary, so a person may not want to give us their personal information. They may not want to tell us where they live, what their phone number is, and all that kind of information. It also asks who their doctor is in case we need to follow up and try to find out what their medications are and things like that. It's self-reported. People can choose to do it or not do it. And a lot of times, they may not even be able to do it personally. They may need a nurse or a helper that helps them on a daily basis to help them fill that out. So that's more difficult to try to get them signed up on this program. I mentioned that it is geo-referenced. We can pull everybody up on a map and see where they are located, so that's a bonus. We do have these brochures at over 55 businesses that this population may frequent. And so we're trying to get the word out, but it's not an easy task. It's not something that you'd make a commercial for on TV and hope the word gets out. So we talk to different facilities, throughout the year about the program. Originally, when we put it together, we had a working group, and a lot of these groups were part of that planning process to make sure that we were not leaving anybody out, that all of the things that you can check box in the brochure were covered that needed to be covered. There was even some, we actually had the word special needs originally, and we found that was not a term that they liked. They liked specific needs better. So we altered that, so we brought all of them into the planning and when we started this up. That was just a real quick on that one. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer?
So how long has this been in effect, Alexa?
2013.
Okay. Seems like a lot of work but a value.
And we don't have, a ton of people signed up. Like I said, it's and historically across the nation, counties that have this type of program, it's not a real high number. But it really is a personal choice for people if they want to do it or not. So we're not pushing, trying to coerce anybody into signing up. It's just really if they want to do it or not.
Excuse me, Alexa, in terms of some of the housing for disabled that perhaps is connected with Black Hills Works or other structured situations, do you have any special focus on them in terms of emergencies, like group homes and that?
We have them mapped out, per se. When there is a large-scale something going on, we can map out those facilities that need extra assistance or extra care, or if they may need to be evacuated, transportation, think about those kinds of things. And we have, I don't charted out, but kept a list kind of facilities that have extra transportation buses, things like that can be used to help, whether that's a nursing home, whether that's Black Hills Works, or something like that.
are the house supervisors, or I don't know what you call them, are they trained in any way relative to emergencies?
I wouldn't know that exactly to know what their training is, but I know that all of those businesses are charged with safety training. So depending on organization by organization, what specifically they have done and done for their employees. We have gone into some of those places, not all of them, and provided, awareness type training and helped with any way that we can. And oftentimes they come to us and say, here's our plan, is there anything we're missing? But not specifically every single one of those. But I know that all of those have to have some kind of a safety plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
I got one more
Oh, I'm sorry.
before you.
I'm not sorry you have one more. I'm just sorry.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is our CERT program, which has been going for a while, also since 2013. And I'll just go through these slides. This is part of what Earth has been experiencing changes for centuries, but they didn't become disasters until people moved in. Stuff like earthquakes, floods, that all happened way before we were here, but because we now live here, they're big disasters. In a perfect world, responders would be able to take care of everything that happened here, but we know that we can't have a plethora of emergency responders that are sitting around getting paid, not doing anything. So we have enough responders for what we would say our day-to-day needs. But when a big disaster happens, friends and neighbors and family want to help out. They're very well-intentioned. They want to help their neighbors. They want to, do the right thing, try to get somebody out of a building, but they're not trained. And oftentimes in those situations, they injure themselves because they don't know what to do and what not to do, what to stay away from, and all of that good stuff. CERT was started in 1985 in LA. They had, after a large-scale earthquake, they had people that wanted to spontaneously help, but they were getting themselves into places that they were getting injured, killed, and it just didn't seem to make sense. And so that's when this started and then became adopted by FEMA later on to become a program that anybody in the United States could take advantage of. So that's where CERT comes in. These are some of the topics that are covered in CERT: emergency preparedness, fire safety, medical triage, disaster first aid, light search and rescue, CERT organization, disaster psychology, and terrorism awareness. And all of those pictures are from our classes. And again, the first training was in 2013 with the Chapel Valley area. We had 14 people in that, oops, I go back here. In that area that took the training. And as you can see, they were of all ages. And that was a good area to focus on because of their limited access, the one entrance and out, and there's 450 some homes back there. And if something were to happen to their bridge, they would pretty much be on their own, possibly for a period of time. And so having some folks in their neighborhood who are trained and know what to do and what not to do is a good thing. And over the next classes that we've had a additional few people from that area who have, jumped in and taken it for that area. The adult classes are held one night a week for 6 weeks, and teen classes, we started a year after the adult classes started. That's held over 4 weeks, and their classes are a little bit longer in duration so that we could pack it in, and because the thought is if you don't keep it shorter, then they may not want to come to all the classes. So, because this is after school, it's not during, school time. So if they're working, this takes away from different things that they can be doing or activities. Each CERT training comes with a disaster simulation, and we moulage victims to test their skills. And you can see right up there, that's me in the upper right corner. And so if anybody needs a black eye or something like that, I can help you out for Halloween. Or that kid was getting a pencil impaled in his arm. So we have some good little actors that come and help us. Some of them get really into it, and they love it. They like to make a scene, and it's really a good test for the students. Here's a few photos from the adult classes. And you'll see right there in the middle, Jeremy Walla is our CERT coordinator, and he does this for free. He's been part of all the 10 classes that we've had, which, like I said, the 6 weeks, the 4 weeks, he hasn't instructed every single one, but I'd say there's probably, on one hand, I can count the times that he's missed, and we've had another instructor. So he's just very dedicated, and I just wanted to give a shout out to him. He's also the fire chief for Whispering Pines Volunteer Fire Department, so he keeps pretty busy, and we're hoping he'll stay around for a while and not get too busy with other things.
Great.
Currently, we've had, of the 10 classes, we've had 57 adults complete the training, 63 teens, and we've had 8 individuals who've taken the Train the Trainer course, and total 128. One of those classes was actually, last year we had a class during the daytime for the city of Rapid City. They had 16 employees that went through the training in trying to, do some additional safety training for their employees. So that was a great thing, and we'd love to try to do that here in the county. Been working with Nick a little bit to try to see if we can set that up sometime. A few photos from the teen classes. They like the fire. They like playing with fire. That's a fire simulator, pan, so it's all controlled with, propane, so very safe. I'd also like to give a shout out to Western Dakota Tech, who provides a location for us to hold this class, and they do that free of charge, so that's a great benefit for us. 2 more classes we have this year, an adult class and a teen class this fall, and all of that's on our website that you can go sign up and find out more information. And during the times we don't have a class going, you can put down that you're interested, and we'll let you know when there's a class coming up. That's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Just to thank you and the Emergency Management Board for all the things they come up with to help Pennington County and the state, actually, with some of their programs and the things they do. So always a great group of people and a lot of good discussion, so I appreciate everything you guys do. Alexa?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great program. I just have one question, and it's probably due to my training. What's the liability of these people that go out and try to save lives in a disaster?
They are covered by the Good Samaritan laws, so that as long as they are trying to do something that's helpful and not outside the scope of their training. So as long as they're not trying to give somebody a tracheotomy in the field, something that they've never been trained to do or should be doing, that the county doesn't have any liability in what they would do. And really, in some counties, in some states, this team is an activated team. They throw on their vests, they all maybe meet up in the center of town, and then they go out. This is the way we have designed it, and encourage people to use their training is wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether that's at work, at home, in your neighborhood, whatever, you are helping. You're not listening to 911 dispatch and saying, well, I'm going to go over to this part of town because there's something going on and I know I can help. That is not the intention of the program, to teach people to do that.
Thanks.
And I did forget to mention, it is a free class. I think I forgot to say that. So, and we hope to be able to keep that free as long as we have some grants and donations to help buy the backpacks and the hard hats that you saw in the photos and all that equipment.
Mr. Chair, so does there have to be a training every so often to keep up the skill level?
There doesn't have to be, but what we do is about once a year, we pull the group back together, and then it's if they want to come or not, and we can have a refresher.
Okay.
And now that we've got 3 years under our belt of classes, we're going to have one. I don't know if it'll be in 2016, but for sure in 2017. We also did a follow-up training for people who had been through CERT, had a CPR class that was covered for them as well, to keep their skills going. And all of this training is actually available online, not near as good as hands-on and doing it in a class, but besides the workbook that they get to take home that has the information, they can go back online and go through that and go through the test and see, wait, do I remember that, and how am I doing with that?
Great. Okay.
One more question. On this can't say the word today, specific needs, do you actually, or maybe you already have, had them come to the CERT programs, or tell them that you do the CERT programs?
We tell them, yeah, when we talk about it.
Like the people you have on your list that you think are appropriate for that?
Yeah, we tell the agencies,
Right.
and talk about it, and it's all on Facebook and and Twitter, we talk about, the program and signing up and things like that. But we don't want to abuse the information that they've given us.
Right.
With an email and I guess, in a sense, bother them too much.
Right.
Because that's part of the reason why, they've given that, because they are trusting us with that information to, guard it.
I shouldn't use the word appropriate, but everybody's appropriate, but just, it seems like if you have the list and maybe just give them a shout out or however you do that, it seems to make sense, because those were the people that would call you first and be able to help the people with specific needs, so,
That's a good thing for sure.
thank you.
Try to do better at that.
Any other questions or comments for Alexa?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is the Rapid City Downtown Area Master Plan draft presentation. And we'll turn it over to Sarah. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Hansel, Long Range Planner with the Rapid City Planning Department. I also have Dan Seffner here with me today with Destination Rapid City.
Good morning. I just want to take a moment and thank the commissioners for having us here and to let you know how important Pennington County is to downtown Rapid City and everything that we do. I hate to admit the time I've been here. I've been 41 years downtown, working and living in the downtown area. And downtown has become very important to the community as to what we do, as to people moving into town and things that have happened. I had a lot of exciting work with Commissioner Hadcock when she was on council as we started the development of downtown and the process of working with Main Street Square. So as we take a look at the consultants as to what the overview would be, we have formed a committee, we've had a group, we've been watching and studying this and looking at it very closely. You're getting some of the first look at it. We've worked at it and looked at it for over a year. Mike has also been involved in the program. So it's very important to what we do, but there's just something I think that I want to bring forward is, as we've worked with consultants in the past for development and for things that happen, I feel the consultants are a little bit like a puzzle. We take the pieces out of the application, we take the pieces out of their recommendations that fit our community. They don't live here, we do. We see it every day, we walk the streets every day. Consultants have some great ideas, some of them we don't think are so great. So I just want to do the overview and say that it is really important that we take a look at the pieces that fit our community, that work for our community, as we've done with other downtown projects in the past. Everything has to blend with what's going on. We're looking for walkability, we're looking for a lot of things. That report is very lengthy. Sarah's going to do some highlights for you. She's obviously with planning and has worked very close with all of us through this whole process. So again, I just really, truly want to thank everyone for taking the time to take a look at this so we can keep moving this project forward and have Pennington County very much involved. Thank you.
So just to build on what Dan said, the project was funded through a partnership between the city, the Business Improvement District, and Destination Rapid City. And it's been really wonderful to work with the county also throughout the process through attending meetings, and it's been a pleasure to work with Mike Kuhl. He's was on our project management committee, kind of guiding the process. This is about a year in the making. We brought a copy for each of you to take a look at. You may keep this copy. Last July is when we kicked off. And the purpose of this plan was to come up with a framework for development. We know that downtown has seen so much investment in the last several years with the construction of Main Street Square and the Promenade. Businesses are investing in their own properties, and how do we continue to build on that as a community? This plan really is an effort from multi-stakeholders. We have the city, the county, the School of Mines has worked really closely with us on putting this together. We also had a lot of engagement from some of the major regional employers. Black Hills Corp and Regional Health have been very invested in this. They acknowledge that the success of their entities really is directly related to the success of downtown. So this master plan is a framework plan. It's really an economic development plan just as much as everything. So where we are in the process right now, this is the draft plan. We will be taking public comments on it until August 5th. At that point, we'll go back into the document, make some revisions, and bring the final plan back to be adopted by the City Council in September, late September, early October. So the goal for my presentation is just to really give you a rough overview. Please take a look through this plan in more detail and let me know if you have any questions. Here's an overview of just to kind of help you navigate the plan when you take a closer look. executive summary, always a great place to start. There's a lot of background information. We started by studying past plans and studies. There's a market assessment, which is a pretty detailed analysis that we did of our demographics and our market opportunity. We wanted to make sure that the plans in this, some of the recommendations in this plan were going to be rooted in what is actually, potentially possible for our community, particularly along the real estate lines. There are several recommendations for housing and commercial development. A community engagement summary, we had a lot of engagement in this process, over 1,700 stakeholders, and then the recommendations themselves and the action plan, implementation, and appendices. So here is a look at the study area. We took a look at, let's see, is this my point on this one here? I'll use this. The planning area really goes from West Boulevard all the way over to the School of Mines, and then including the Civic Center and the Journey Museum. I mentioned the market assessment. Here's a few highlights. Overall, strongest demand for downtown is housing units, maybe even up to 370 units. Creative office space, perhaps a 4-star boutique hotel, public realm investments, and personal, as far as retail goes, we have a lot of retail downtown, but maybe some personal needs like a Walgreens or some place where you can have your daily needs met. And the whole market assessment is included in the plan. Here are some interesting graphics from our community engagement strategy. As I said, there were about 1,700 people who participated. We had interviews, we had focus groups, we did an online survey, we had design charrettes, we had open houses, and we were really, really pleased with the amount of feedback and engagement that we got from the community on this plan. So what did we find out? There are 9 sort of areas that the plan is addressing. I'm not going to read to you off the screen there, but as you can see, some are land use issues, some are public realm infrastructure design issues. We're looking at linkages to the School of Mines, safety, connections, housing, arts and culture. Of course, the P word, parking. Parking is always an important topic. And core values. These are the core values for downtown. Livable and emerging neighborhood, prosperous, active, welcoming, and connected. We hope that all 60-plus recommendations in the plan are working at promoting these goals for downtown. Really, when you take a step back, this is what we're trying to make downtown. And here we're getting into the planning weeds a little bit, so I won't linger here for too long. But as I said earlier, this is a strategy for the public sector and the private sector. So the plan has a framework that focuses on each of those areas. The blue area development, that's about private investment. If you're a business owner or a property developer, what are some principles and best practices that you can follow that will help achieve the goals for downtown? Similarly, if you're the city or a public entity, the county, what are some strategies and best practices that you can use to promote connectivity, bring more green space into downtown, and improve infrastructure? Here's a map that further illustrates some of those ideas. We talk about the character of downtown. Overall, we want downtown to be one unified area, but we also acknowledge that there are different neighborhoods. So, for example, the historic core is what we think of around Main Street Square. It's quaint, it's generally historic, think of brick buildings. We're all very familiar with this area. And then there's what's called East of 5th, or the Innovation District. This is a real opportunity for our community. There's a lot of investment happening in this area right now, and we are calling this the Innovation District. This is really where we think the most opportunity for concentrating sort of a startup ecosystem, innovation, job opportunities for School of Mines students. Really think there's a lot of opportunities in this area. We have so much talent that comes to this community to go to school, the School of Mines, and they get their education and they leave. What types of opportunities can we create for them to stick around and stay and build their families and their homes and their businesses here? This is a land use plan. This map is showing that we have a lot of real estate downtown. We shouldn't treat all of the real estate the same. Some areas are more car-oriented, some places are more urban in nature. There's also single-family residences, and how do all of these different places work together and be compatible with one another? The plan also illustrates several opportunity sites. This is the first that's noted on there. There's 3 examples. This is the site that's located at 5th Street in St. Joe. The recommendation is a proposal that we've seen versions of in the past, and not really anything new here. We think that this is an opportunity site that needs to be developed, and hopefully this plan will spark some inspiration as to what the potential for the site is and kind of get the ball rolling on developing this site. And here's a new idea. This is 3rd Street. There's a idea in the plan about how to make improvements on 3rd Street. Interesting opportunities with the county being at the terminus here, and a great opportunity for connecting to our bike system here. So here's what it looks like today using Google View. And if we were to focus development in this area and have some higher density and really kind of create a pedestrian-oriented street with a mixed use, this is just kind of an out there idea of something that could look like. And kind of like what Dan said, these are just ideas. They're meant to spark inspiration. They're not building plans ready to go tomorrow. So there's that. We want downtown to be a place where mobility is open for all. So we know that cars are always going to be a part of our downtown as far as we know with technology, but we want to make sure that bicyclists and walkers have an ability to get around as well too. So the plan goes into a fair amount of detail about public spaces and how to connect those public spaces to major destinations in downtown. And here's a little bit more on that, is illustrating what some of those connections could look like. And the plan is not just text, there are also several graphics to kind of illustrate, to paint kind of a wide option, sort of a menu of options. Here's how we could improve our streets to help not just describe what it is, but really to show what it could look like. And these are all recommendations that will be looked at further by traffic engineers and studied in a little bit more detail before they would be implemented. And the design guidelines is illustrated set of sort of best practices if we're wanting to create a more urban environment downtown and really make the most out of our investment. What are some best practices for design of buildings, how to situate them on the lot? This kind of gets into the weeds a little bit on planning details, but the plan does come with a set of design guidelines that could be implemented either through an advisory non-regulatory volunteer board, or they could be reviewed administratively and attached to incentives. So there's kind of a range of ideas for how those could work. And you'll notice in the back of the plan, there's an action plan. Each of these columns has recommendations. This is just kind of an overview of those 9 key areas. There's over 60 recommendations ranging from quick wins to some more visionary ideas. So take a look at those. I won't stay here too long. Here again, we have housing, innovation, linkages. You'll see the table in the back of the plan. Arts and culture, parking management, safety and cleanliness, and then these are some of the public realm infrastructure. I just want to highlight number 9, that's the land use and zoning. I think one of the most valuable products that we've gotten from this planning process is a detailed sort of analysis of our zoning code and how we can bring ourselves into the future by making our zoning code more responsive to market demands today. So we've had our zoning code reviewed sort of generally through the city's comprehensive plan, but this was a stakeholder engaged look at downtown specifically. We met with developers and real estate professionals and really talked with them about what some of their barriers are, what types of projects they're wanting to develop but are having issues with. And I think that the land use and zoning piece of this plan is one of the most important to implement in a short term. And as I said, there are also some quick wins on there. You know, we don't want everything in this plan to cost a lot of money. And so there are several ideas and identified here that really wouldn't cost that much or could be implemented just using staff time. And another aspect of this piece is the implementation plan. There's some guidelines and some recommendations for how to make sure that this is a plan that doesn't sit on the shelf, that it is continually used by our community, stakeholders in the downtown, and that the ideas can actually have life and be brought forward. So there's some recommendations for how to facilitate the implementation as well as to fund the improvements that are recommended. Here we are, next steps. We are going to be making final revisions to the plan at the close of the public comment period, and then we'll be bringing the final plan back forward to the City Planning Commission, and then Public Works and Legal Finance, and finally to be adopted by City Council early this fall. So I just want to thank you for having us here. It's been great to present to you. It's been wonderful to work with the county, and we look forward to having this be really the beginning of a dialogue about how we work together to make improvements downtown. We are available for questions.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Any questions for Sarah? Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things as I looked at some of what is, I believe, going to happen in downtown, in the big cities, in these neighborhoods, they have these wonderful little small grocery stores. Was that ever talked to? Because with all of the proposed housing and so on, having that really great little grocery store located in this, particularly in this area where it'd be accessible to School of Mines, that, I didn't know if that was a talk. You talked about the services.
Yes,
for
so
people who
the
live
market
there.
assessment took a look at retail and,
Yeah.
there's, small scale electronics, those things are kind of extra. But especially if we're gonna have more people living downtown, we want a small scale grocery. Where do you go if you need Band-Aids in the middle of the night or something like
Yeah.
that? So one of the recommendations in the plan is to work on attracting
Yeah.
smaller scale, commercial, personal service needs.
They're fun to go to when you're just visiting a community even, and to have it, I mean, it's used by everybody living here, but it's also kind of fun for the tourists, I would think, to have a little place down here to go and.
Yes, we're really lucky to have the Family Thrift Center on the west
Yeah.
side of downtown. Not all downtowns actually have such a wonderful grocery store right downtown. But as you get closer to the School of Mines, there is a gap there in what people need on a day-to-day basis.
Just on your page 41, you have stakeholders, and I believe the county should be underneath there, and only because I think we're one of the biggest property owners downtown. Number two, we do have about 700 employees, so we are a big stakeholder that way. And we are, and you already know that, I think, from Mr. Cool, that we are rezoning some of our properties, and that in the future, maybe we do a downtown campus, or downtown county campus in this area for the needs of Pennington County. And also because we do have a unique group of buildings with the jail and different things downtown. So if that could be maybe included in on that, I think also a lot of us have met with you and interviewed, and so people know that we were a part of that and that we're just not going along with it because we're part of downtown, that we actually met, and we believe that we are one of those bigger stakeholders in this process.
Yes, thank you, Deb. That really was an oversight, because meeting with the commission really at the beginning of this and getting a sense for the property that you have and kind of the direction that you were going
And Ms.
really was
Sarah,
helpful.
I've worked with you for a while on not just this project, but others, and you're a wonderful person. You also work very, very hard, and you are, you know your stuff well. So I appreciate everything you have done with this and the downtown businesses, and Mr. Sefner, Mr. Hillenbrand, and Mr. Tribby that have been a part of this process since I was in there, which was, 10 years ago. It's pretty exciting to see this move forward. So thank you all to what you have done and what you have done for our downtown. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Sarah or Dan or Mike?
Mr. Chair, I do. On page 7 of your memo in our packet, number 9, revise the zoning and land use code to be more mixed use, quote unquote, friendly. What does that mean?
Our zoning code was written in the mid to late 70s, parts of it even earlier. During that time, it was standard practice to separate uses. So we're going to put housing in this neighborhood, and we're going to put commercial in this other neighborhood, and we're going to make things and be more industrial in another neighborhood. We're finding, communities all across the country have codes that are set up like this. What we want is to be able to say that you can have a commercial space on the first level of a floor, and people can live above the second space, or you can live and work in the same space. So when we talk about mixed uses, we're really saying that we want to not segment the activity in our economy so much, but we want them to all be able to coexist. The city has several processes currently that you can go through in order to achieve this, but the goal for the zoning revisions is to allow them by right, depending on what it is, but to make it easier to mix those uses together.
And when we were downtown, Commissioner Farabee, and helping people back when I was down there, the land use and the zoning was a huge issue for anybody trying to redo a building or even be in the downtown. So a lot of people just went on the outlining areas or somewhere else because they couldn't fit those needs with the zoning codes and the land use that they had. So that was the bottom line, and it's come a long ways, but I'm glad it's even moving further.
It's totally a matter of expanding the central business district. As Sarah had mentioned, it was done in 1970 when our population was roughly 36,000 people. So we need to expand beyond that now.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't quite done, but I have another question. Rapid City, as I understand it, has a new comprehensive plan. Does that mesh with this philosophy?
It does actually. So the direction to undergo this plan is actually a short-term task that we were asked to do as a result of the comprehensive plan. This plan really builds on the sort of vague recommendations for downtown. This gives us additional tools and studies and the public engagement portion to take downtown to the next level.
So, Mr. Chair, a follow-up. In the comprehensive plan, folks anticipated or visualized this notion, and then you folks also visualized independently, or there was some collaboration?
So the comprehensive plan was a project undertaken by the same department that I work for. The comprehensive plan is meant to look at our entire community with a really broad stroke and set out some general principles. Then the next step is to go into an area and look a little closer. And so this plan represents that second step of going in, digging deeper, talking to the people who live there, and coming up with a specific kind of development strategy for that area.
Mr. Chair, another follow-up. This, wouldn't the mixed-use notion apply across the board, not just downtown, but across the board in Rapid City and the county?
Actually, that's true. It depends on where exactly you're talking about. We don't want to go in and disrupt too many longstanding neighborhoods. You know, there's kind of a scale aspect. You want to really look at mixed use in terms of compatibility with the neighborhood. So it depends on where you're talking about, but generally, wherever we can have mixed uses, the less we have to extend our infrastructure, the more cost effective it is. Reducing urban sprawl, those are all important planning principles.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, the next item is item 9.
Morning, folks. I'm Chuck Jasper. I have
Morning.
what I think is a relatively simple request. I'm asking for the authority for the adoption of the Pennington County Code of Conduct. And specifically, there's actually one code of conduct that applies two different places. If I read the Pennington County website correctly, the first one says it applies for county commissioners, elected and appointed department heads, members of all boards, commissioners, committees, task force, and other appointed advisory groups. But then when I look at the website, it also appears that same code of conduct applies to petition circulators, which to me is a disconnect. It doesn't appear to me that that one code of conduct should apply to both parties, or both types of people, if you will. And that's part of my reason for asking, what is the authority for that code? And with that, I would certainly answer any questions you might have as to why I'm making this inquiry. I think it's a very simple inquiry.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Jasper?
You have my contact information, and you can contact me in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is item 10, items from the auditor.
Good morning. Julie
Morning.
Pearson, Pennington County Auditor. Have before you item 10A, which is the accounts receivable policy that was mentioned by the Department of Legislative Audit in their closing conference. Currently, it's acceptable practice to set it between 30 and 60 days, and we want it set at a minimum of 60 days with the note for federal grants, state shared revenues, and various goods and services that we don't get. What the policy does is, because we're not on a cash basis for financial reporting, any money received after the first of the year for services or charges
from the previous year, we have to account for as a receivable, as money coming in on our financials. And we want it extended out to 60 because even some of our federal grants we don't get for up to 6 months. That's just the reimbursement cycle and the time frame. So they want an official approved policy, and so that's what we have put together before you.
I'll make a motion to approve the Pennington County Accounts Receivable Policy as presented by the county auditor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Pennington County policy, not the auditor's office, correct?
Yes.
Shouldn't that be in our policy book? There shouldn't be a formalized entry in our county policy book, signed by the chair and so on and so forth?
I don't maintain your policy book, so.
Probably should be.
Well, point being, if this is not at the auditor's office, we have obviously no jurisdiction over the auditor's office, but it says Pennington County Accounts Receivable Policy, so that implies us. So on that basis, unless it's addressed properly, I can't vote for it.
Any other comments? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Fairby, were you referring to the handbook? Is that where you were liking to place this policy?
No, they have a policy handbook. They
Okay,
must have
I didn't know if it's the employee handbook. I was just curious.
No, we have a Pennington County policy book.
Yeah,
It's
that's all I was
about
asking.
yay
I was-
size.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item B.
This is the resolution to officially give the Miller Ridge Road District the Miller Ridge Road. All the information is attached. They have met and have decided to motion to accept that, and so we need the resolution passed. We'll file the quitclaim deed to the Miller Ridge Road District, and that will be almost done with my property listing. Fine.
Okay.
Approval of the resolution as presented.
That'd be my motion. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
You know, Mr. Chair, if I might, did we ever find the document that conveyed it to us, the county? I know the Hart Ranch one or the Duffer Drive one,
Yeah, it was attached in the information. Quitclaim deed from the Stoleys, 21st of February 96, which was prior to the Miller Ridge Road District actually forming.
so we found the minutes that the county accepted the property.
Minutes are also, I have the minutes as well as the deed.
Anything further? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item C.
The next is when we did the surplusing and conveying of property to the city of Rapid City that they decided to accept, which is mostly the flood property through Brayburn Addition. When we converted the list to an Excel file, we missed 2 lots that were picked up upon posting and title parcel changing, and we need to follow that resolution, and basically it's just a duplicate of the resolution you've already approved. And the city approved receiving all of those properties, so it didn't have to go back through the city council.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the resolution as stated.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D.
Still working on the property list. I found a parcel that was taken for tax deed, that the majority of the property surrounding on that hill is owned by the South Dakota School of Mines. And I need your direction on it. Basically, I suggest that we send a letter by motion of the board to contact the School of Mines for possible acceptance, transferal, and conveyance of this parcel for the continued use by this government.
That'd be my motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we do have a second. I have a question.
Yes.
Has this property ever been offered at our surplus auction?
Yes, it has. Back when we took it clear back in, oh, it was taken by Pat McKinstry back in '89.
So I'm assuming the lack of private interest in it is access? Difficult to access in terms of this lot?
No, we took it on a tax deed, which means
No.
whoever owned it prior to that did not pay it.
But when it was up for auction and nobody bid on it, there must have been a reason.
There's no value because of access is what you're asking.
I have no idea why people don't bid on property.
No, okay. All right, we do have a motion and a second. Anything further?
Mr. Chair, along the lines you were asking, is this an isolated tract?
I have no idea.
It looks good.
So maybe we should explore that before we go. Anyway, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Motion carried with one no vote.
Thank you, Julie, for all you and your staff going through this
Just about
property
done
list.
on it.
You're,
It's a big task in one sense, because we've had them on there for a while, but thank you and your staff for doing that.
Thanks.
okay, item 11. This is our opportunity to recognize that we have until September 6th to adopt the budget. And we have the opportunity to make changes between then and now. So if anyone has any changes they wish to make, I think it would be appropriate if we made those changes in the form of a motion or made those requests in the form of a motion so that we're not just bouncing around. So does anyone, go ahead.
The only change I've made from approved provisional, as I noted that day, was I have received the updated budget from the highway fund, which basically was reducing his budget and reducing the amount that he's taking out of cash reserves. And since we talked about that one, I'm not going to present that until the 6th, since the board's aware of that. That's the only change I've had at this point, but you were aware of that one.
Thank you. Does anyone have any motions at this time? If not, we'll move on to item 12. Approval of the
Mr. Chair, I would have one discussion item, though.
You what?
I would have one discussion item on the budget.
Okay.
Well, I still think if you want to move in a direction, you make the motion.
Well, I don't know how to put this in the form of a motion, but there's two people that aren't here today that'll be living with this budget. And we got to have the discussion, how much input should they have on this budget come September 6th, before September 6th? I don't know how to put that in a motion, but I think it's Commissioner Hadcock and I were handed a budget that I wouldn't have voted for, and I sat and couldn't do anything about it, but these two new folks ought to have some input to the budget.
Maybe they should be here during the discussions.
Even if they were here, what avenue would they have to input to it?
I think we would have listened.
Are these two people department heads, or what, what's the nature of their input?
I don't think that's an appropriate question, and
Well, I think it is an appropriate question, and I would recommend that we quit playing games.
that 2 of the 5 commissioners that have to live with this budget in 2017 won't be voting on this, as and 2 years ago, as Commissioner Hadcock and I, we had to live with a budget, 18% reserve, as opposed to 20% reserve, and I guess that was a mistake that was made, whether intentional or not, but anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, item 12. Approval of the vouchers.
Make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we have 35 minutes to do whatever you want.
You gonna sing?
Have recess.
I was wondering if you were gonna sing.
Do
You have a tune that
Do
you'd
we
like
have
to
an
sing?
executive session?
Do we have it?
Yeah, do we have any executive
Do
session?
we have an executive session?
We have executive session?
If you want to do executive session.
No?
The only thing, if you wanted to jump ahead and do committee reports, if you wanted to do items from the commission, you could knock those out quick. But no executive session today.
Okay, what do you want to do?
Let's do committee reports and chair and commission members.
Okay, we'll move on to item 14. And I think I pretty well covered everything that I had to say at this point. And would just emphasize the matter of getting any thoughts on the budget solidified to recognize the time that we're working in. Any comments from commission members?
I'd like to thank Mike Cool and Mike Peterson for helping out the fairgrounds on many things that they've been doing for the fairgrounds. We also had taken air conditioners out of some of the buildings because they wouldn't fit in some of the needs that we have now, and they used one of the air conditioners in one of the buildings at the fairgrounds. So some of those things that they're taking out of the buildings are being used through the fairgrounds, whether it be some of the trees and some of the plants and different stuff for the fairgrounds to enhance it. So thank you to the buildings and grounds people that have been helping move that forward. And the board of the fairgrounds wanted to thank them, so.
That's great.
Okay, any other comments? Somebody's got to talk quite a while if we're gonna.
I'm trying to think of
Karen,
what
do
I
you have
could say.
anything you want to say? Oh, come on. Holly, are we missing anything that we need to cover?
Committee reports?
Number 15.
I think we'll have to hold items from the public till after planning and zoning.
On 15 for committee reports.
I thought that's what you were doing, but go ahead.
Okay, we're on 15.
We're on 15.
Go ahead, Nance, your turn.
Well, we are really working together with the Forest Service and the local organizations that have worked with the mountain pine beetle, and we're moving ahead with the Healthy Forests Initiative. There's still some active mountain pine beetle, but there's a lot that is no longer active, and as we move forward, we need to figure out how to have healthier forests so that we don't get into such a situation again. And there's a report being done right now by the Forest Service that we locally have had input into, and that will, I think it's around the 1st of September, be out for public comment. But the hope is that we've learned some lessons and that we can move forward with a better idea of how to keep our forests clear. And just as a kind of a side note, the Crook Peak fire up there in Spearfish, it was really close to the city, but they let it burn and just secured the perimeter. And the main reason is because that fire was right in the middle of a heavily damaged area that from the mountain pine beetle, and the trees were dead. It's difficult to fight a fire within that area, but it also was actually something that nature did for us. As long as we controlled the perimeter and didn't get into populated areas, it was a good thing to let it burn and get rid of all that dead trees that were around. So you'll see some of that as we move forward the next several years, that if they can control the area where the fire is and it's heavily damaged, they will allow that fire to burn itself out. So it's kind of interesting how, nature's good to us, but we mess it up. So
Commissioner Troutman, Scott Guffey and his group, a big shout out to those guys, because my brother-in-law and my husband, when we were driving, and I just told them that in the room over there, big compliment to them, because the sides by the highways and stuff, very clear, very well maintained, because of our Pennington County group of Scott Guffey and the people, the forestry and other things they do. So we hear a lot of negative on some of that, but there was some positive and a lot of positive that he does that we just drive and don't really notice until one of our family members or others with us go, wow, check that out. And then you go, yeah, that's one of our people, or that's our people doing these things for weed and pest and environmental impact. So again, nice shout out to them, because I don't think it's just my family that's noticing. I think many people are very thankful for what they do.
great.
I could tag on to what Commissioner Troutman had to say about lessons learned. I learned a hell of a lesson, and that's as soon as the bugs appear, start spraying. I lost probably 2/3 of my trees, and I've been spraying for, I think it was year 4, and to the tune of about $2,000 a year. The lesson learned is for private landowners, the Forest Service obviously was overpopulated and drought and bugs, and that's what we get when we don't let fires burn, and we don't log like we should have.
George, one of the things out of the tragedy of what the mountain pine beetle did to the forest is that not only here, but in areas like Colorado and Montana where the same type of thing happened, even many environmentalists now realize that you can't just let it go to nature, because that is not going to solve the issue. And that you do have to have timber sales, and you do have to have thinning. And out of a really tragedy for our forests, some things I think are coming out of it that are good, because you're exactly right. They really, every time they tried to do a timber sale, they were in court.
30 years ago was horrible.
Yeah.
Just horrible.
Yeah.
And so it got overpopulated, and then the drought come along, and,
Yep.
and nature's thinning in the forest,
It is.
and that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I do, as much as I hate to say it, I have a committee report, Hillsborough Task Force, and have any of the other, before any contact from any of the folks looking for money. They pressed me pretty hard, and I didn't say anything, but they're pressing for money, and if nobody's called, I guess that's fine, but.
Did they?
Mr. McGrath was in the office yesterday. He dropped off the request, and it'll be presented to you on September 6th for your budget consideration. They're requesting $25,000 for Save Ellsworth.
Okay.
So it's been scheduled.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Well, I just have one thing that really does nothing to do with committee reports. I'm just wondering if Commissioner Troutman would like to explain her plan of taking over the monopoly of the eating establishments in Rapid City?
She's gonna go do a grocery store next.
Yeah.
I heard that. I think I got the hint.
No, I was thinking, God, I wonder how that could.
You could put your pizza and all the stuff you do for food in there.
Yeah.
It could be Nancy's grocery and eating establishments.
A motion to take a 25-minute recess.
Second?
Second?
All
Third?
in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. We need a motion for a Board of Adjustment.
So move.
Motion and a second to convene as the Board of Adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 13A.
Good morning, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. Item 13A is a variance request 1610 to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 25 feet to 7 feet for a garage in a low-density residential district. The applicants and owners are Wade and Sharon Reynolds. As this property exists today, it is zoned low-density residential district. It is 3 acres. Access to it is off of South Airport Road, and it currently contains a single-family residence, the foundation and framing for a 26 by 26 garage, and an on-site wastewater treatment system. The way that this one came about is in May of this year, staff received a complaint regarding a building being constructed too close to a property line on the subject property. Staff did a site visit, verified that they did start building a garage. No building permit had been issued for it. So the plat of this property was filed in 2001 and indicates an 8-foot minor drainage and utility easement along the interior side of all side and rear lines. Upon a measurement, the applicants found that the partially constructed garage encroached into that utility and minor drainage easement by less than a foot. So they worked with the city of Rapid City. This is in their 3-mile platting jurisdiction. So they worked with the city and vacated 1 foot of that drainage and utility easement. And then they came to us and applied for this setback variance to allow their garage to stay where they are proposing to construct it, where the foundation is. On their variance application, they indicated that the reason is that they're adding a 2-car garage with a room above it, and they wanted access to the room above the garage from the 2nd story of their home, and where their house currently exists at kind of limited the location of where that garage could be. So if the setback variance is approved, the applicants will be required to obtain an approved building permit with all the applicable fees paid prior to continuing construction of the garage. And at the time of this staff report, we have not received any complaints or concerns regarding this setback variance request. So referring to the 4 criteria for the Board of Adjustment to consider, staff has verified through a site visit that construction of the garage has started. Again, there is foundation and framing of the garage. This is what it currently looks like. This setback variance would not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from property zoned as low-density residential district. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would require the applicants to remove the partially constructed garage and relocate it to an area on the property that does meet required setbacks. And they have indicated that due to the existing location of their residence, the garage is more accessible in this location. And granting this variance does not appear to be contrary to public interest, but would allow for a 7-foot side yard setback in a low-density residential district, which is not in harmony with our zoning ordinance. So if the Board of Adjustment approves variance 1610, staff recommends 3 conditions be included.
Any questions for Cassie?
So they built this garage without a permit, is what you're
Correct.
saying?
They started it without a permit, yes.
Okay, so when did they go to the city and ask for that and figure out the easement, that nobody told them either at the city or otherwise that they need a permit to build a garage?
I don't believe that they inquired about it through the city. The building permit would have come through us. The only reason the city got involved is since it's in their 3-mile platting jurisdiction and the drainage and utility easement was a platted easement, they had to vacate a portion of it through the city.
And how'd they find that? Through you?
That I'm not sure. The applicant is here today, so I'm not sure how they found out that information.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I want to pick up on that. So May 25th, you received a complaint.
Yes.
Did they go to the city after that to
I
vacate
believe
the easement?
Yes, it was after the
You were
complaint came
asking,
about.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
After, you said May 25th, Miss Nancy?
Yeah, it says that's when they received the complaint that started the process. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm struggling just a little bit. I feel like we've got a disconnect in our information, and I just want to verify this. When I look at the drawing, it looks like the garage is a considerable distance from the house and that they will not be connected. However, in our narrative, it talks about the fact that the reason the garage has to be there is that they want to connect. And I'm kind of confused about that because it does, who provided the drawing?
That drawing that you're looking at, that Exhibit A, that was actually a drawing that was done by the surveyor for the vacation of that portion of the utility easement. It's
not
my
matching.
understanding that it's detached right now, but they plan on connecting it through a breezeway, is my understanding.
But the point of this whole thing is that it needs to be where it's at so they can connect to the living quarters above, and a breezeway is not going to do that.
Yes, currently it is detached, but they're the ones who have indicated that they plan on connecting the two. That's why they put it here.
Do they have to get another permit to connect it?
Yeah, they'll have to get a permit they don't have a permit yet for what's already done. We were waiting for the setback variance to be approved, but yes, they would need to get a permit for what's already been done, and then whatever breezeway or whatnot they use to connect it, they would have to have a permit.
When was the house built? Do you know?
The house was built with a building permit. It was built in 2004.
Same owner?
That I'm not sure.
Any other questions? Sir, would you want to address the commission?
Please, thank you. Yes.
Come forward, speak in the mic, and identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Wade Reynolds. Actually, what happened was kind of a funny story. We were under the understanding that we were in the city limits, and I'm a builder. And so I thought my setback on side setbacks would be 8 feet. And coming to find out, I came to the county to get a building permit. My wife was supposed to pick the building permit up when I was away. My contractor on the concrete said, I can pour the slab if you just let me in. It was before December. I said, pour the slab. I said, we'll get down and get a building permit. I know we got an 8-foot setback. My wife didn't get the permit. And anyway, it was like about 3-4 days later, I said, well, let's just start on Saturday. I said, I'll go down Monday. I framed the walls on Saturday and Sunday and found out that we find out from our neighbor that we are in rural residential and that we should have been 25-foot setback. So, and I believe we started the process way before May on doing coming in and doing the application at the county, and they said, you'll have to start at the city. So we said, okay. We found out that there is a 25-foot setback. So we went to the city and started the process. We had Jeff Howe do the surveying and found out that we were actually encroached into the drainage and utility easement by 7 or 8 inches. My bad, because I put the pins. My wife didn't want the garage further north before the fact that she was afraid that the wind would blow between the house and garage and we would end up with a big drift, because that's our door right there. She wanted the closest access to our front door. I was going to build a metal or a steel powder-coated bridge from the second floor to the second floor so that our grandkids could go to the room above that. We were going to make that into a playroom for the grandkids. So long story short is I got the horse in front of the cart, and I apologize, but we're only doing this under good faith. We did not mean to do this. We're just trying to improve the property. I love to build, and I wanted to build my shop over here, but my wife wanted a garage first. So long story short is I apologize, and I hope that you guys will take that in consideration and grant me the easement.
Mr.
Go
Chair,
ahead, Miss Nancy.
Any questions for Mr. Reynolds?
you say you're a builder?
Yes, ma'am, I am. And,
Wow.
yeah, I made a mistake on this one, I know, big time.
I have a question.
Yes.
It looks like the garage doors are gonna be on, where the big opening is on the
Yes, sir.
right side.
Yes, sir.
And that faces, where on this drawing, which side of the garage are the doors gonna be on?
The door is actually on the west side, because the house actually faces towards the airport. On the front side of the gable of the house is actually facing due north, and the garage faces, the two windows actually face due north. The entrance in the garage is on the west side, which is over by our well.
You pull the other picture up, that, where the building was, there you go.
Here's
Yeah,
one
where
looking at it.
where the trusses are sitting is gonna be the entrance, and that's on the west side. And our well is just behind the skid steer there.
So,
Still a foot off.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is. It's,
So your setback isn't the city's or ours at that point, you're still a foot off of on your
well, in
setback,
this,
right?
the city granted us the 7-foot drainage and utility easement to 7 foot up from 8 foot. So that was a process that we got to get to here so that we could apply for this request
Okay, that's what I didn't, so you got a variance
from the city.
for that foot.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's, okay.
We had to do that before we could come to the county, so we've been working on this since like January, February. It's been,
Now
it's
I
been a longer
understand.
process.
So you were in the 3-mile limit.
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
we have a lot of issues with permits and stuff. So now I totally understand.
Okay.
Okay.
That was my,
so-
like I said, that was my bad.
Okay. So you literally need a variance because of hardship, because you went through, you tried to do it right.
I did, I made a mistake on the setback, and I didn't know that I was in the county, I thought I was in the city, and then.
Yes, sir.
So that's where this process, and actually where that window is upstairs right there, that's where we're gonna put a sliding glass door, and I'm gonna build a powder-coated bridge to the upstairs with a
Well, here's,
patio door into the upstairs. of
here's the
garage.
crazy thing, Mr. Reynolds, you went through the city
Yes,
and got a variance and nobody noticed that you were in
I
county?
guess not, I didn't know what was going, we just got this letter
Yeah.
out of the blue, and it's like, well, we're already working at the city. We're trying to
Yeah.
get that taken care of so that we can come and see you guys, so that's the process we've been dealing with.
Right, and they didn't tell him when he got his variance that he was in the county and he needed a different setback.
Mr. Chair, I understand how that works, but I mean, you should have been paying city tax all this time if you were in the city limits and you weren't.
We just bought this place a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so long story short is that my wife deals with all the taxes. I didn't know. that we were in
It
the
really
county.
bothers me that you're a builder and you didn't know this, it really does.
I'm really sorry about that. It was,
Yeah.
like I
It
said,
sort of
was-
feels like, oh, I got caught.
No.
Oh.
Truly, I was gonna get a building permit. I told Sharon, my wife, to go down the county, get a building permit. So long story short is, she dropped the ball and I was away. The contractor wanted to pour the concrete, so I truly got the horse in front of the cart. That's
Yeah, you
honestly,
did.
I was gonna get a building permit.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Discussion on the motion.
I truly believe it's a hardship because I know he's a builder, but he also did the steps in order to try to make it right too. So, I appreciate that. That was the key for me, that you went to the city and, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried with 1 no vote. Now we need a motion to adjourn as a Board of Adjustment.
Motion to come out of Board of Adjustment.
Thank you very much.
second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn as a Board of Adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, consent calendar.
The Board of Adjustment uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item B, Planned Unit Development Amendment Review PU 0603 for Prairie Valley Development Company LLC, and it is recommended to be continued to the September 6, 2016 Board of Commissioners meeting.
It's my motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C.
PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. Item C is vacation of section line right-of-way 1605. The applicant is Craig and Joanne Hyde. The other owners are Jean and Carleen Vanderwert, and the surveyor engineer is Britton Engineering. The subject property is combined as 21.95 acres. Essentially, the applicants are requesting to vacate approximately 1,860 feet of section line right-of-way. The exhibit there on your right, the hash marks is the section line that they're looking to, the portions of the section line they're looking to vacate. Per state law, South SDCL 31-3-6.1, 1% of the votes cast in the last gubernatorial election are required to sign a petition for the vacation of the section line. The Auditor's Department verified 335 signatures on July 1st, 2016. The purpose of the vacation of the section line is to basically increase more, to have more buildable area on lots JR, excuse me, Lot K and Lot 3. Currently on Lot JR, which is 7.82 acres, it's low-density residential. It's in sections 27 and 34. There's a single-family residence built in 1989 with a building permit. There's a 20 by 12 tool shed built in 2005 per DOE records that was built without a permit. There's a 24 by 30 detached residential garage in 2004 per DOE records that was built without a permit. Further, it appears that the shed and the garage encroach in the existing section line right away. In the staff report, it indicates that there's a 25-foot setback there. However, upon further research, this property was consolidated and all the designations for the property were changed. And after the staff report was written, went back and did a little bit more research, and there's actually a 0-foot setback on that property line. So all we're really dealing with is the section line on Lot JR. So on page 4, item D2 is kind of is irrelevant. Lot 3 is 11.39 acres. Excuse me. And it appears to be vacant of any structures, mostly forested. Lot K has a single-family residence, it's 2.74 acres. The single-family residence was built with a building permit in 2012, and they finished a basement with a building permit in 2013. This vacation of section line was routed through the interdepartmental review, and no items of concern came up. There have been other section lines vacated in the area recently, 1602 and 1603, which were both approved by the Board of Commissioners on April 19, 2016. The section line that they're asking to vacate does not provide access to public lands. The applicant would like to vacate that portion again to have more buildable area on the lots. And the section line, if it is not vacated, does not appear to be able to provide adequate access for roads, as these are the pictures of the area you see here. And therefore, staff recommends approval of vacation of section line right-of-way 1605 with 4 conditions and the applicant's concurrence.
Any questions for PJ?
So, PJ, low-density residential can go up to how many acres?
It can go up to as many as they want. The minimum require in LDR is 3.
So what is lot JR and the one next to it? How many acres are each of those that were vacated in the line through?
Okay, so Lot K is 2.74 acres and grandfathered. Lot 3 is 11.39, that's limited agriculture, and that one is 10-acre minimum. And then with the consolidation into Lot JR, that's 7.82 acres.
That's low density, right?
Yes, ma'am.
My concern sometimes, once you vacate that section line, then look where that house is. If you decide to put it back in there or make less suburban or something later, wouldn't that be the appropriate line to draw if you're selling the lot? And does it meet that setback at that point? And when it was built, is the section line, did they have to build away from that section line 25 feet?
When the house was built, that was Lot JR with two separate lots, one above the section line and one below. The house was built in compliance with the section line, and also multiple setback variances were obtained back in 2003 and 2004 for the house. The previous owners went in and built the shed and built the garage, obtained setback variances for them, so those are in compliance with setbacks, but not the section line.
So do you have a map of the whole area, what it's, what the zoning is?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Right
you.
there. So the green is limited agriculture, the yellow is low-density residential.
Okay, and the lots around that are how many acres?
Oh,
Like,
right, well, a lot of this is
Gonna-
Harney Mountain subdivision, a lot of them are over 10 acres out that way.
okay, that would be my point, because then later they want to change it and do, if everybody else has 2 or 3 acres, then it usually falls into, like you said, it had to be a certain amount. Sometimes vacating those section lines are also access areas that we're vacating. So we did already vacate Lot K's section line to Lot JR. So where's the access to this property come from?
Access is coming off of, I can't remember the name of the road, sorry, Addy Camp Trail,
And that's county or private?
road district.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D.
Item D is vacation of easement 1601 for Brad and Colleen Kurtz Fisk Land Surveying as the agent. Subject property is currently 2.18 acres. And I'll try and do this one real quick. In 1978, lots 8 and lot 9 were platted with a 6-foot minor drainage and, well, basically a utility easement on all but non-front facing lot lines. In 1993, lots 8 and 9 were consolidated into lot 8R. When that was done, an 8-foot minor drainage and utility easement was recorded on that plat. That 8-foot easement went over top of the existing 6-foot easement on the exterior lot lines, but the 2 6-foot easements with total 12 feet where the old lot line was going right down the middle still existed. So what this basically, this request is to clean up paperwork and to get rid of the underlying 6-foot utility easement. The utility company in the area, which is Black Hills Electric Cooperative, has no issues with this vacation request as long as the 8-foot easement remains. Therefore, staff recommends approval of vacation of easement 1601 with 2 conditions.
That'd be my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair, before we vote, those 2 interior easements, this definitely wipes them out?
Yes, that is the request.
So all that's remaining then is on 3 sides, basically 3 sides, just 8 foot.
8 foot is on all, as are going to be on all interior lot lines, so the the 2 front facings and then the 2 what we would consider side facings.
On Gary Boulevard, there's an easement there too, or just?
Yep, 8 foot.
Utility.
Yep.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, PJ and Cass.
Okay, item 16, items from the public. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the commission? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.